Good afternoon, and welcome to the Economic Vitality Committee meeting of June 18th. The committee does have a quorum here at the townhouse and online, so we can proceed. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of May 21st, which I sent around to the committee, and I'm going to take a motion to approve it.
I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there
Aye.
any discussion?
No, just sharing my approval.
All right, all those in favor? Aye. Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Okay, we have two guests in the room. You guys introduce yourselves for the record, please.
I'm Tom Wilson, obviously applied to be on the video at the request of people. My current activities, first of all, I failed retirement, start there, and I ended up taking on a project with the right pattern. I'm working on leading the project that's Bringing to Life. That's been my life at this point now. My wife calls it my dollhouse, but it's a wonderful project. It's a lot of fun.
We're glad you're here and thank you very much for your interest. I have your contact information at home. I'll be sending you a note that we could meet, for us to meet, the three of us
Excellent.
chat, so kind of explain what we do. And have any questions that you have, we'll
Sounds great.
from there.
So Mike, would Tom be a community member or a cultural?
I don't know, we'll look at the structure of the committee, see where we have a need for, so.
And hi, I'm Stuart Ikeda. I'm Director of VR and Strategic Partnerships at the Umbrella Arts Center. I also serve on the Concord 250 Marketing Communications Committee. I chair the Commission for Arts and Culture in Arlington and the Arlington Cultural District, so they're involved in economic development in my town. I don't live here in town, but I had been interested potentially in finding out about BBC and whether there might be some guy as a member. This is within my working hours, so I would really need to work that out into Tella if that was of interest, but I just came here today to see what you all are focusing on.
We met once before,
We did.
but you were swamped, so
We were.
we left
There was
you.
a little thing of the semi-bicentennial coming up then.
Good, I would note for the committee that we've also, Mimi and I have also spoken with Adam Stark. And he has expressed interest in it as well. And when Ms. Hartman gets back from the trip, she'll be meeting with him. Assuming that that will go well, then she'll be nominating you.
So did you ever get a chance to talk with Sharon Spalding?
I have not, but probably here, the reason why though is that Adam is does not live in Concord. He does not live in Concord. So I have not had a chance to talk to the select board chair. If she's okay, that's fine, then I'll do it, but I didn't want to get all the Sharon. Get something rolling that the select board is gonna.
I'm just wondering if she would fill a slot that the other candidates. may
She
not be able
fill
to fill.
property, I know a slot for property owner, so she's fill that stuff. All right, well, thank you guys both very much for coming. I would also say that, thanks to Linda Miller, who isn't here today, she's no longer on the planning board. But, she's been the liaison to this committee for a couple of years, and I think it was really helpful to us all along as we try to advance our agenda, so. Appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is a debrief of town meeting. We had, as you know, two warrant articles, one for accessory use in industrial zones and one for eliminating parking requirements for changing use business, both of those, so one was on the consent calendar. And the second was approved by town meeting in 2/3 vote on Wednesday night. I don't know if anybody else had any comments. I have one comment that I'd like to make about it, and that was frankly, I was quite disappointed that the only people from our committee that were at that meeting are the 4 people sitting in this room. And it's a little disheartening to work on these things and not get the support. I mean, 2/3 is a tough bar at town meeting. It wouldn't take much for that to pass, so I hope going forward, we'll be able to get a little better representation than the town meeting. The next item on our agenda is election of officers. We don't have like a nominating committee. So I'm not sure exactly how to proceed, but I do have a suggestion. That is that we've had a number of people leave the committee, their terms have expired or stepped off, and we're, as we know from just earlier this evening, we're actively recruiting to get our membership back up to where it was. My recommendation was, why don't we postpone that discussion of the officers, people who are currently officers for Missouri. Until we get the committee back at full staff. Let's seem reasonable.
Are you interested in, can you run again?
Am I interested? No. Can I run again? Yes. But the tradition in town has been, always has been, they don't become a committee of somebody who hunkers down, straps himself in. So I think it's healthy for committees, maybe this is gonna be the time it works, but healthy for committees to change the leadership of that other for the chair for committee. So my preference would be to see if there's somebody else in the committee who's interested in going to use chair. If there isn't anybody, then I'll be willing to continue.
The pay is great, right?
So what?
The pay is great.
The pay is great. It's, 2 times what I got on my life. Yeah, I think that's pretty important.
You got a chair there.
No, I got, well, see, I don't even have this in on the meeting, room. Never thinks about it. The next item on the agenda, is goal setting. Here's our problem. Our goal setting process follows the goal setting select board, and they haven't.
Right.
So what I sent out in the package of information to you, each of you, is this document. We realized it was essentially trying to lay out buckets that represented our strategic areas of focus for the year. Once we had those buckets articulated, then we worked to develop specific items under each of those, the buckets that we could work on. And we made some progress on some and not so much progress on others. So what I think we have to do for goal setting, because our goals are supposed to be directly in line with not only the Vision Concord 2030, but also the annual select board history. Now, we can talk about goals on the month. You sent me a note earlier today, articulating an outline, having a conversation about goals, things that are on the mind. But in terms of actually setting goals, I think we're gonna have to wait until we've heard from the select board. So if you wanna sort of outline where you set along?
Sure, so, I think it's, intellectually fun to talk about, 2030 long-term goals, but. The reality is that I don't think anyone who, might have been planning 10 years ago would appreciate the severity of some of the fiscal challenges facing the town. So although we can talk about 2030, we can talk about long range, we can talk about some of the select board, particular goals, I do think that we have, sort of once in, generation opportunities vis-a-vis MCI, vis-a-vis, looking at where the commercial tax base has been, where it is today. Sewer capacity has always been sort of casually referenced as sort of a no growth area, where the reality is Concord is, will grow. Whether that's some mixture of commercial and residential, we don't know. So when I think about goal setting for this committee, I couldn't imagine goals sort of larger goals for the select board of the town where, sewer capacity and finding new opportunities and talking about regulatory easement potentially wouldn't fit in. Where increasing the commercial, base, particularly at MCI, wouldn't fit in. I continue to think that we owe it as a committee to give Mimi and to give Megan and Kerry some input on what we believe might be some priorities for the next year, given who some of our constituencies are, whether they be the chamber or the partnership, or even walking around town, what the businesses are thinking. I think that, I think about Mimi's job and I think about what we don't do a great job of patting ourselves on the back when things go well. So Mimi specifically, like all the hard work you've done with grants, I don't think people know about that. I was at the MCI workshop and I talked to people about, scenario three. Scenario three is 750 housing units with 350,000 square feet of commercial. And I said, hey, and I was talking to people, well, if how are we getting sewer capacity to do this? Oh, we can. What about the school capacity? Oh, we can. But I think that Joe Citizen has no idea what the sewer capacity of this town is, what some of the issues are. I don't think there's familiarity really with how tight the school capacity is as far as student head count and some of the things that may happen there. So whether it's a town or a community media focus, I do think we should be a little bit more extroverted. Whether that's a quarterly article in the Bridge or whether it's an interview with the EDC chair to sort of sensitize the community as to something, hopefully attending these meetings and talking about these issues and understanding how they all relate, because they all do relate together. And I continue to think that, and it's one of our goals as far as I think we need to funnel input from developers and business owners, particularly those ones who operate in other towns, to give specific feedback. Because the feedback I've heard for the last 5 years is Concord's expensive, Concord is slow, Concord is hard to navigate. And maybe it's getting better, and I know maybe you have a lot of case studies where successes have been accomplished, and we should talk about, and we should tell people about that, but we also have long-standing people who we admire, who just, are continuing to be battered. And, it's a really hard situation because everyone is concerned about some sort of level of retribution. They don't really want to irritate the Board of Health. They don't want to really irritate the building inspector, but I think it's clear to me, based on my conversations, that there are some areas for improvement. And if we do talk to specific developers and we can, and business owners, we can keep that confidential, I think we can give real data. Because I think anecdotally to say it's slow, expensive, hard to navigate is interesting, that's what we've heard, but I think if we say, hey, I was in Concord and they made me do an XYZ study, I'm in 5 other towns, I've never heard of that study. That type of thing really, I think, is impactful. So, those are my goals, as far as those are my thoughts. I can't imagine they wouldn't fit into a larger umbrella. And then again, even if it doesn't, I would say we're under somewhat of extraordinary times. And we have extraordinary challenges, but I think we do have extraordinary opportunities, MCI being the most glaring, to really set up a good course for the town for the next 10 or 15 years.
Well, I agree, let me react to that by saying that in our, we're a committee that has a limited set of responsibilities. But they do fall into 2 broad categories, that one of which I think in particular, we haven't been as, I don't want to use the word aggressive, but active. That is lobbying. We don't have any legislative authority, obviously, we can bring articles, we had some successes last time, I wouldn't say they were killer articles, but I think we can be, take more action as being a lobbying committee on behalf of the business community to the town whenever there is something that comes up. So for example, Mark, you're on the land use committee. You guys met yet, I don't know.
No, no,
But there's no reason once you guys get going and start putting stuff on paper as to where you're headed, that this committee can't react to that. And provide our opinion on behalf of the business community, and if we need a bigger megaphone, we can try to get the partnership and community just to weigh in with this. So that's an area where this last year, I think we were not very active. You know, we sent a couple letters, but I think we can do independent of what particularly we lobbying about. When we develop and understand the area that affects the business community, we ought to be a megaphone. So that's that. The other is the policy and regulations. I think we can just keep chipping away at that. What are the two articles we're gonna try to bring that soften or speed up the process that you know to the force? I think, you know, one of the things that I'd like to see added to this list of, we had down communication and marketing. That's fine, I'm all for that, but I'd like to see us have a stronger, real lobbying effort on behalf of the business community. So maybe we just change marketing communication to include lobbying.
Would that lobbying, would that mean we might, the one thing I would say that was, I think, helpful to our articles and to the passing, it was, we had the planning board actually attend a couple of times. We started working relationships so that you're not satellites, not communicating. You just wonder, would you suggest having, Board of Health, somebody from the Board of Health, I mean, keep it committee to committee. I don't think we burden staff having them have to come unless they want it. But just ask a member and come in and listen to suggestions from the Board of Health, from our standpoint in terms of Board of Health or building inspection, I suppose, the building commissioner, I guess we. Yeah, I think.
Well, that's,
It's kind of Mimi, I'm sure Mimi does that staff to staff right now, but I was thinking committee to committee. So that if we wanted to do something related to the Board of Health, we've started a base working literally with somebody from that committee. But, you could say.
I would just pull back on what you said. At the same time, we've identified the issue. There is a statutory committee in town that is responsible for that.
Correct.
So if we identify another zoning issue that we want to wrestle to the ground, it's the planning board. If there's a health issue, inspection or whatever, that's the Board of Health. So I think I would just encapsulate it by saying that's one of the ways that we can exercise our lobbying and influence is by identifying who has the statutory responsibility for whatever it is we're about. And start with them, build relationships. I think it worked out pretty well. Planning board, I mean, they were, they weren't always very receptive to it, especially early on. I thought I got the sense that they weren't gonna go for it, but we worked with them. Maybe was a lot of meetings. I was at some meetings. And we were able to get them to sponsor the article, so it was on the warrant. Yep. And then to talk with them about supporting it, finally got actually a split vote, but we got their support for it. So I think that's a good template for what we might do with other initiatives that we come up to touch other committees. Yeah.
a little bit of a non sequitur, but, I'll just call it the, Henry's vote, or Henry's warrant article on the zoning as it relates to cells towers and cell, I guess some tower placement was close. Super close. And I know the planning board, I think, voted no action. So if we were to take, the pulse of the business community, particularly the partnership in the chamber, this would be the number one issue. So I'm just wondering, maybe how we can work with the planning board to make sure that it is a 100% certainty that, you know, there is a comprehensive and a zoning change that they're comfortable with. Or we can make progress on this issue, because I think we screw around for another year. I just, you know, I think.
Well, that is their goal. They have as a goal this year to promulgate regs and everything for cell towers in the center. That is the reason, right? I mean, that's not what they said at that meeting. That is the reason they didn't support, not the reason, a serious reason that they didn't support Henry was that they, at least that's what I heard them say in the open meeting. That, well, we're already gonna do this, we're gonna do a comprehensive study, therefore this is premature and, you know, we don't wanna go that route. I didn't like that decision, but I'm not sitting on the planning board. But it is something we could bird dog them and make sure we keep their feet to the fire. But just know that it is one of their specified goals of the year, so it's pretty.
Well, if we had going forward, it could come up and we had noted the knowledgeable of Henry's article. And we thought as a committee that this was an important article. We did nothing. We did nothing.
Right.
We could have lobbied the planning board. The planning board didn't even do what they did for our article. That is for our article. They supported it. It got on the warrant as a planning board article. They didn't have us. They got on as a citizen petition.
Right.
So I think that's another example of being much more proactive. I think that's a good area.
Is lobbying writing a letter from the chair to, is that in your definition of lobbying, like, if we wanted to work?
That's not all, but that's.
No, I understand, but that is,
But I see calling your committee, asking your committee to come here. Like your board of health thing, just say,
Right.
look, this is our phone, you blah, blah, blah,
Wrong place.
in their meetings.
Oh. Those shoes it is.
That's,
Steve,
Yeah, Steve.
I think the meeting just wasn't muted.
Oh,
Huh?
Steve, do you have something to say?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I thought I was muted here. We have a little background.
okay,
So I would just think that if we're looking for big buckets, for me, not surprising. Infrastructure would be the big bucket. So infrastructure is, you know, roads, I think we just approved 27 million, so roads, check. You know, water, we approved a massive, you know, spending bill, you know, a year ago, we now have the stormwater check. Cell phones issue, sewage, huge issue. You know, so I think that there's enough maybe, that falls within infrastructure, and infrastructure is. Fire, police, safety, it's DPW, for me, that, it's not physical infrastructure. But those are, services that really are infrastructure that need to. Make sure is in balance. We talked about all this growth.
well, I think, you know, in terms, I think the sewer is huge, paramount to most of the other ones. And then one, in thinking of it from the EDC standpoint. I don't know whether statutorily you could do this, but I would like the town to figure out some sort of ratio of residential to business use and allocate the gallons per hour that we have, or every day, or whatever it is, that they have to reserve 20% for business. So whatever it is, I don't know, it probably isn't that high. Maybe, I don't know. But so that it doesn't get sucked up by. So that at least the Board of Health has a guideline of public works. That when a project comes up, they have to say, wait a minute, we've got 100,000 gallons and 20,000 of those are reserved for the business community. Whether they are absolute to that, but at least have it on the agenda that it is. You know what I mean? Because we're gonna be really close, because when I saw 750 units out there, I don't care who does the math, that's sucking up the whole. That's sucking up the whole remaining, 100,000 we're gaining out of the plant out there, which I think. That works, I'll be amazed. Yeah. I think the other part of it is a goal is, because you said lobbying, now I'll get to what I want to talk about lobbying is. I think the town has got to lobby the EPA to,
And the state, it's not just the EPA, it's the state regulation.
but EPA will overrule the state. If they want. And they don't, and they never will, but at least. Get both parties at the table, whether it's a select board member and a member from, Alan Cathcart and a member at large. And work on that, deal and ferret that out and say, guys, our water is cleaner than it's ever been and you keep us at the same number, how is that logic? Doing it by gallons per day, if you're pumping Poland spring water in the river. Would you give us a little more? No, really,
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, for an issue like that, Mark's talked about surgery for as long as I've been on the committee. We can get updates from Cathcart, I mean,
but we do, it seems to me, we're doing it as if we're a frat club and nobody gets to come in the door and we don't go out, we just sit and drink our beer in circles and talk stories. I think we gotta take it outside and say, guys, this is, if the state wants housing, you have to listen to us on this gallons per day. Okay,
I have a couple, can I chime in with a couple of suggestions so we've got these big global things to think of. And ways in which we overlap with other committees, and I think it is kind of one key thing within that is how can the business community be a consistent voice at those? I'm kind of worried of how often the business community, when it's in among the family, people complain, and then the times where it's to speak out, people aren't articulating, and whether that's the role this committee needs to kind of have the voice of the business community if they don't feel like they can speak publicly, so that worries me a little bit of like, how can we be consistent on that? And then a couple things that are kind of very much in our wheelhouse that nobody else is gonna take up that we might wanna think about. And that this had come up a couple of months ago is about beer gardens, which increasingly is. And right now, part of the challenge is that we don't really have regulations to allow beer gardens in any kind of reasonable way. We're trying to shoehorn it in a little bit. The other part is right now, if a business wants to do any kind of special event, they, outside of the confines of their business, they have to go for a special permit. So for example, and so, things kind of happen under the radar, and so for example, if there was a real estate agent here in Concord Center that wanted to do a simple little flea market in their parking lot one day. Technically, they should have gotten a special permit for that, and anybody that's gone through a special permitting process knows it's expensive, it takes a long time. Doesn't matter how small the project is, so that's another one to address. And then this mixed use in business districts of the planning board, I think is one that we want to be really closely involved in. Because that's really taking businesses it's converting businesses into residential, and that's gonna have a major impact in the districts. Right now, West Concord's the only district that has got a way of reserving ground for active uses. But Concord Center, I don't think it's really gonna happen, but it could be. Right now, there's so much open office space. There are businesses that I'm already working with that are wanting to do conversions of their upper floors. To residential. So I think we want to be really actively part of that conversation on, like, every time the planning board is talking about it, I think we want to have some of our own conversations about what we want to advocate for.
Well, let me just say, not reacting to anything you said, but all of those fall under a category that we have on our strategic focus, which is policy and regulation. So those are all good things to bring out, those particular items, but they fall under directly. I think we used Concord 250. I think that goes away as a strategic focus. And then the ones we were left with were communication marketing. We talked about that a little bit in terms of, I don't know what exactly the right language is, but lobbying, proactive activities, and then the third one was recruiting and retention in Concord businesses, and that, of course, a little bit overlaps in policy and regulation. Mark raised categorically, the other is, town infrastructure. And I don't know, I mean, I've written it down, I just stand alone, and underneath it, we've got, you know, sewage and whatever the other infrastructure. So,
Excuse me, Mike, there's a hand raised in the Zoom, Don has got his hand raised.
Hi, thank you. Don Kupka, 39 Devon Street. I'm a member of the Finance Committee, but I'm speaking on my own behalf. And I have two suggestions that along the lines of the conversation you're having. One is that you might advocate to the Light Board for public Wi-Fi. At their last meeting, a member of the public asked them if they have the ability to provide public Wi-Fi in downtown Concord, as many other towns do. And they said, yeah, we do, and we've never really thought about it or talked about it. So I think that would be something for economic vitality to do. It would certainly give your businesses access from point of sale terminals, and then also with a proper signage, it would give the public a way to hop on and make voice over Wi-Fi calling. The other point is on the cell phones. It is really hard to get a tower into downtown, but the other solution is called small cell. And you might contact the Public Works Commission about that $27 million road project, because wouldn't it be nice if they put in place conduit so that a Verizon or AT&T could put up small cell throughout Concord. And today we have no empty conduits in the road, but with this project, I thought perhaps they could install empty conduit, and then the cell providers could provide very low power, small localized antennas, and it totally obviates the need to have this argument over towers. Okay, thanks.
thank you, Don. Are there any other comments? Well, what I would suggest is, at our next meeting in July, which we haven't set yet, by then we should have formally our select board goals in place. And I would ask each member of the committee if they would go back to this piece that we developed last year. And if you could send your recommendation, Mark's already sent for the list of concerns that you will be here. But either in the sense of dividing categories that you think become important, or within the existing categories, particular items. So we've had good examples of that. Mimi talked specifically about 3 items that would fall directly under policy and regulations. Mark has talked about infrastructure, we talked about sewage, we just heard from Don about public Wi-Fi, cell phones, etc. So I think everybody just send it to me, and I'll try to get them organized. So that when we come back next time, I'll produce something that looks like this, only with all of your suggestions in it. And we'll pick this topic up and see if we can make some progress in it. All right, thank you very much. The next item, Tiffany is away, so we're not going to get an update from the business survey. So next, Beth, you're up.
Hey, everybody.
Report
Yep.
from our tourism manager.
That's
Ms.
me.
Williams.
Hey guys, so really quickly, we are continuing to ride the buzz from 250. I'm just finishing my fiscal year end reports, and we'll have by far doubled any previous year worth of revenue, both in tours and in merchandise sales. Obviously a large portion of that was the 250 merchandise that we sold to the hordes of people, but I'm really pleased to see that we are seeing a huge uptick in repeat business, which tells me we are doing something right, and we are continuing to create new reasons for people to come back. We've seen corporate come back year over year now. I've got a couple of companies on their 3rd year here. And what I like about those is those do tie directly to my goals and the 2030 goals of increasing the amount of small group travel that comes here, because that works within the capacity we have. So I had a woman today, she brings groups of 20 to 25, and they are going to do a specialized tour based on the Transcendentalists. So she will be going to Thoreau Farm. She will be hosting people at the Colonial Inn. She will probably use the 1780 house for a special event. So groups like that we can really customize itineraries for, they're planning on being here 3 or 4 days. Those are exactly the types of things that will make an impact long-term to the economic vitality of the community. So I'm really pleased to see those things starting to come to fruition. And we're having a really busy year. I mean, like, I can't say it enough, like, business is booming. And the new products that we're offering are really, really well received. I started a new focus on accessibility as part of my goals this year. So we now have a wheelchair at the visitor center. And starting this fall, we are going to offer ASL interpretive tours once a month. And we are going to work to try to get some Braille materials as well in the visitor center so that we can continue to sort of attract a wide variety of audience with different mobility needs. I've been meeting with Council on Aging, Council on Disability, and Jess Porter, our ADA consultant, about how we can make use of COA vans to maybe offer a van tour once in a while at a time the vans are not in use, to really be able to maximize people's time in Concord. Again, if they're here longer, they can stop for lunch, they can shop more, they can spend more than just a tour bus that comes and goes in an hour. So some really positive things coming our way, and I'm really pretty grateful to be where we are and have the offerings that we have.
All right, thank you, Beth. Is there any questions for Beth? Thanks, Ken, and congrats on doubling the revenue. That's pretty good.
Pretty good.
Amy,
So our first Thursday's event starts tomorrow. I'm trying to, was it overlapping with Juneteenth? But in some ways we're kind of leveraging those connections. So doing some joint marketing. We've got over 30 businesses signed up to participate. A few of the businesses are really leaning into it, like Concord Market is doing this whole little chips and dip thing, so you can come and sample all kinds of different chips, because they've got all these fancy versions of it, and they're gonna do a little cooking demo, kind of showing different how with common ingredients you can make kind of move beyond the salsa, and they've booked their own band. Walden Liquors is doing a wine tasting, and the cultural venues once again are stepping up, like they're doing the history happy hour at the Concord Museum. The Orchard House is open. They're doing special programming. A lot of the businesses are still a little skeptical, but like I said, over 30 of them are open. A number, probably another handful or so are gonna kick in come September. They just sort of feel like it's too quiet in the summer to kick off yet, and they have trouble staffing. But overall, we're enthusiastic. And thanks to Beth, we've been pushing out a lot of the promotions for it, mostly online, but we've got some sandwich boards and that sort of thing.
your activity in West Concord too?
This is just Concord Center. So I feel like the West Concord businesses already do a good job of doing a spring into West Concord and the Discover West Concord Day. So this is really trying to get the merchants in Concord Center together, and the sort of late night, AKA 8 o'clock, is a tradition that Concord Center had a long time ago, so we're sort of trying to bring that back specifically for here. The cultural district for Concord Center, so the Concord Cultural Council is kicking off some strategic planning for themselves through this fall. So that's one thing to kind of put on everybody's radar, because it is an overlap of like looking at economic vitality and cultural uses, and they've got a little bit of a budget, and they're really looking at how to leverage that. And so they're sort of looking at what are going to be some of their metrics, and so that's something to put on people's radar. And this is just like end of the fiscal year, lots of projects. So it's like reports on the benches, reports on the age-friendly program, closing out the different projects for the 2 cultural districts. So it feels a little like wrapping up all these things, end of town meeting. So that's what it's all about right now.
Thank you.
Amy, when is your sort of goal setting for next year? Has that happened yet?
We're waiting for the select board feedback too. So the select board did say that they wanted to hear from the committees, what should the select board goals be? So I don't know if that maybe is part of the conversations we wanna do, and maybe that's gonna come out of this stuff that's going, it's like, how can we influence the select board? Cause one of their goals last year was really looking at parking regulations and how to make them more business friendly. Maybe there's some of the things on our list that we wanna put on there, you know, it can go up the chain too.
I'm confused. I thought we were waiting for select board goals, so we could fit goals underneath it, but it sounds like, which I like better. We come up with our own goals that hopefully are a way to lobby, advocate. The select board to consider possibly either fitting within, check. Or establishing new goals or complementary goals that may stem from this guy.
How I understood it from them is they're looking for suggestions. But they would like committee goals to be under there, so it's not like our goals to feed up to them, it's sort of like. What do you think, we should, you know, sort of a brainstorming session, and then it'll filter down.
So the way I would phrase it, and I would not at all be opposed to drafting something for the select board. Is that our committee is having, I'm just making this up, but preliminary discussion about goals, and what has emerged is two areas that we believe need attention. Maybe not. The infrastructure, paying attention to infrastructure. So I have no problem in the committee's interested in drafting a letter to select board, and I don't know if they're entertaining.
I think it's called lobby.
Chris, are you wanting to chime in?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I like that suggestion, Mike. I remember Mary saying, introducing the idea of a bottom up kind of approach in terms of goal settings. So I think providing preliminary kind of notes on goals or just a rough outline would be helpful. Hopefully it's, it coincides with what they've, listed for their goals as well. If sewer, MCI redevelopment, commercial tax pay, if all those big ticket items aren't addressed by them, then I think that's a problem, right? But
So, Mimi, I remember, this, in my notes here, it looks like the end of September 23. There was an economic vitality strategy. Remember this? Was this ever updated, or was this an outline, or?
It's sort of like what I did was I took the 2030 plan and I basically had 4 kind of big buckets for economic vitality. So then I sort of looked at what are the metrics that, and kind of the buckets that are in it, what are some of the metrics, and where are some of the specific projects I can do that are related to that.
Has this been like a guiding, like a map for you, or is this updated?
Yeah, I gave out another version of that,
Yeah.
couple months ago.
Yeah, I might have missed that.
Yeah, it was 3
Probably November.
Yeah, but then we had another goal meeting, maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and I gave an updated version.
So is that something we should review then, because I don't remember. I probably missed it.
So, do I hear that you would like to authorize the chair to send something on behalf of the committee? So, okay,
Yes.
what it's gonna say is, as you may know, last year we have identified areas that we were concentrating on, we've made some progress on those. This year, as we began our discussions, again, there are policy and regulation issues that are clearly going to be on our agenda. And we want to intensify our efforts to lobby on behalf of the business community when issues arise. But most importantly for you, we believe that issues of infrastructure in town are critical for us, and we hope that you'll out of hand figure out those options. But seem reasonable?
So the one thing you're saying is that the primary issue is infrastructure we're advocating for?
I know if we were lobbying the select board to something we want them to pay particular attention to, that's what we would want. We're gonna continue to operate under the policy and regulations that we do. We have new issues that come up. But this is an area we've identified that wasn't on our playbook last time, and we think it needs so forth. The other thing I would say in this goal setting was best for you and me. It's odd to have a committee in town where staff is on the committee as opposed to staff. And we talked about how that's a little bit on the opposite side, but as you both develop your goals for the upcoming year, I would like you to think about, could you identify a goal, more than one goal, I don't think, where you think the committee could be particularly helpful to you? So I'd like to sort of cement the relationship between the goals of the staff and see our committee is also having a responsibility, as I marked articulated before, being supportive and helping you drive those initiatives. So it may be your beer garden thing, it may be, I don't know exactly what it's gonna be. But I think I'd like to see the committee being purposefully helpful to you as you tackle it. On your goal. All right. So again, everybody will do this sucker. I will get you'll give me the updated goals thing. I'm sure I have it, but if you can really find it. And send it along, I'll send that along. And you guys find in with the big headers or specific activities for goals, okay? All right. Tiffany is not here. We've heard from Beth and Mimi. Are there any public comments? I
Hi.
can't see. Marlon?
I'm Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End, member of the Finance Committee, speaking on my own behalf. I'm glad to see that you folks are publicizing the 4th of July picnic in the park. Are the town and the Chamber of Commerce going to have the August summer sidewalk sale like they have in the past? It's usually been about the first week of August. And if so, have you set a date for that?
Yes. August.
What is the date?
I'm going, August 2nd.
And what time?
We normally do 11 to 4.
Okay.
And the signs just got made. They just got dropped off at my office. So as soon as the picnic in the park is done, we'll switch out picnic in the park signage and third Thursday for the sidewalk sale.
Perfect. Thanks much. That's it.
You gotcha.
Thank you, Carla. Are there any other public comments?
Say it again.
I don't see any.
If the meeting's the 23rd, how much in advance do you want? Should we send out a bullet to everybody asking for their goals that aren't here by a certain date?
Yeah. But I'd like to get it, a week, 10 days before.
That's what I was just looking at my calendar. 23rd sounds like a long time, but it'll come up real quick.
So maybe from left field, Mike, but does it make sense for us to ask the town manager or the deputy town manager the same question we're asking Mimi and that is, are there areas where this committee should be helpful, could be helpful, or do we keep it in?
I think not. I mean, those goals are the ones that are between the select board and town manager. My recollection is they would have conversations about what is on the town manager, assistant town manager, deputy town manager's mind, same way we would be doing. So I think I'd stay out of it.
Operationally.
Huh?
Operationally.
Okay, so 4:30. Each on the 23rd. She was at the 18th. All right, any other comments? Thank you both for showing up today. And so we'll adjourn our meeting. Thank you all very much for coming. Tom,
Thank you all.